If you are buying a home in New York, closing costs can be one of the biggest surprises, even for experienced buyers. I'm Nigel Wingate with Coldwell Banker American Homes. I am a realtor here in New York, and today I'm going to break down everything you need to know about buyer closing costs here. Okay, what they are, how much they usually run, and what hidden line items to watch out for, and real strategies that you can actually use to help you save. Okay, so if you need a realtor here in New York, if you are looking for a realtor out of state, I have resources down in the description below. I've got trusted contacts that I can link you to. Check that all out in the description. So first, let's define what closing costs are. Okay, these are fees and expenses you pay in addition to your down payment and mortgage principal. Okay, they include lender fees, title and attorney fees, taxes and insurance, inspection fees, appraisal, and more. Okay, they are due at or before closing and often need to be paid in advance. Okay, so such as escrow, prepaid items. So knowing what these are helps you to avoid being shocked at closing. So very important to understand this. Okay, so second, how much are closing costs on average in New York? Buyers in New York typically pay around 3.1% of the purchase price and closing costs. So for example, if you're buying a home that costs $538,000, you can expect closing costs around $16,800 or so in that area. Okay, consumer affairs in New York City, specifically, closing costs can range between 1.5% to 6%, depending on whether it's a co-op, a condo, new development, or house, depending on the financing. All right, so third, let me walk you through the major line items of closing costs so you know exactly what to expect and what to budget for. Okay, so that is going to be mortgage related fees. Okay, these include loan origination fees, often 0.5% to 1.5% of the loan amount, bank processing fees, and any lender or broker fees. Okay, you've got appraisal fees. So lenders require an appraisal to confirm home value. This often runs between about $300 to $1,500 depending on property type and value. Okay, then you've got title search, okay, and title insurance. Okay, the title must be clear of any liens or other issues. So title insurance protects both you and your lender. These fees can vary. Title insurance is often 0.4 to 0.5% of the purchase price in certain areas. Next, you have attorney fees. So in New York, buyers are required to have legal representation at closing. I know some states don't require it. New York is one where we require it. Okay, these costs range depending on the complexity. The typical range in New York City is about $1,500 to $3,000. I haven't seen anything more than $3,000. It's typically in that range. Next is going to be inspection fees. So you have home inspection, termite or pest inspection, sometimes needed. I've had that come up sometimes. Sometimes separate engineering or structural inspections. Not always necessary, but sometimes needed. This depends on the home's age and condition. Okay, it's usually a few $100 for these inspections. Okay, next is going to be prepaid items and escrows. So things such as property taxes, homeowners insurance, HOA or condo fees. Some portion must be prepaid depending on when you close to cover the period until you own the home. So that can vary depending on when you close, and that's all negotiated. The attorney will help you set that up. Government recording. And transfer taxes. So in New York City and New York State, there are mortgage recording taxes, transfer taxes, sometimes local levies. For buyers, key ones are the mortgage recording tax. Okay, so this is often 1.8% to 1.9% for loans below or above thresholds. And if the property is over a certain value, the mansion tax can apply. Okay, that's usually about 1 to 3% in New York. Fourth are hidden costs or surprises that many people miss. Okay, so you have new developments or sponsor units often carry extra building fees or move-in deposits, additional fees for the building, or higher taxes or mortgage recording fees. right? So higher costs for condos versus co-ops. Co-ops sometimes avoid some real property taxes or mortgage recording tax, depending on structure. So condos typically have more title and ownership fees. So important to understand. Okay, condos typically have more title and ownership fees. Points or discount points. So if you pay to buy down interest rate, that costs money up front. So also sometimes the buyer pays the bank attorney processing, credit report, etc. Okay, variations by county and locality. Okay, fees like recording fees, title search, and insurance vary across counties. So what's charged in NYC, right? That may not be the same as what you're charged in Suffolk, Nassau, or upstate. So always get estimates that are local to the county that you're in. Okay. Fifth, how to save or reduce your closing costs. Okay. Yes, this is possible. Okay. So you can ask the seller to contribute or cover certain closing costs or seller concessions. It's negotiable. Sometimes sellers will agree, especially in a soft market, right? So it just depends on the market. Sometimes they're willing to do it. Okay. Shop around lenders. Different lenders have different origination fees, processing fees, and third-party charges. Okay, a small percentage of difference adds up. Okay, time your closing wisely. So if you close at end of month versus the beginning, your prepaid interest and taxes might be less. So try to close at the end of the month. You owe less money. The seller can pay for it. Okay. Increase your down payment. So larger down payment can reduce certain fees. So if loan amount is lower, mortgage recording tax on financing is lower, etc. Okay. Waive unnecessary fees. So if some fees are optional, right? Example, discount points or certain title insurance endorsements, evaluate whether they are worth it. Okay. Use buyer credits or first-time buyer assistance programs. Some local state programs may help with closing cost grants or credits. All right. Sixth, let's do a simple calculation so you have a ballpark idea. So let's say you're buying a $600,000 home in New York State, outside of NYC or in the suburbs, but still subject to similar tax fee structures. Okay. On average, expect 3% for closing costs. So that's around 18 grand. Now add a few optional items, okay, such as inspection, prepaid taxes, insurance, perhaps some points or fees. You might see that number go closer to 20K or maybe even 22, 23K. If it's a condo in New York City or a new development, added taxes, mortgage recording, perhaps mansion tax, if over thresholds, mansion tax in New York is over $1 million, that might push it higher, maybe 4 to 6%. Seventh, what the buyer should do before closing to avoid surprises. Okay, request the loan estimate early. So lenders are required to send it within 3 days of your loan application. So compare it carefully to your closing disclosure. Review the closing disclosure form usually 3 business days before closing, so you know every line item. Okay, ask questions about anything you don't recognize. All right, very important. Ask for an itemized list of all closing costs from your attorney or your lender. Understand which ones are lender required, okay, versus optional, okay, because not all of them are required. So important to understand that, okay. Budget not just for closing costs, but for unexpected costs. Sometimes fix-ups, inspections, reveal issues, maybe negotiations to cover those can help. All right, so finally, just to wrap up, closing costs are a big part of home buying in New York or anywhere you buy. And when you don't plan for them, they can completely derail your budget. Okay, but with knowledge, comparison, shopping, and negotiation, you can reduce what you pay. So if you need help calculating what closing costs will be for a property you're looking at here in New York, reach out to me. All my contact information is down below. And if you're buying out of state, I can connect you with a trusted realtor there. If this video helped you, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That way you don't miss out on any future videos and real estate tips. Drop a comment telling me the price range you're looking in, and we can talk about estimating closing costs for your area. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a great day.